Hello, everyone. This is the Catholic Esquire. I know many of you question me about this from past videos I've done, but it's also something that's talked about in other YouTube channels, blog posts, etc., especially among traditional circles. And it's this concept of the anti-church. It's been phrased other ways as well. Ape of the church, counterfeit church, and it is referencing the hierarchy right now that currently holds itself out to be the Catholic Church. And it's often referred to as the anti church, counterfeit church, or the ape of the church. And so, what I thought would be useful for you is to try to explain what that actually means. I think that's a source of confusion. I get a lot of questions about that. So, what I'm going to attempt to do today is try to define that and then explain it in a way that makes sense. Now, keep in mind, there's no, super authoritative dictionary to define this. No, this is something that's new, that's been going on since the Second Vatican Council, particularly. Obviously, no one in the hierarchy has authoritatively discussed the anti-church. This is something that Catholics who hold to the faith are witnessing with their own eyes and trying to rationalize or explain or articulate in a way that makes sense to others so we can properly define what's happening in the church, the crisis in the church. It's a way to help articulate this crisis in the church to other people, and which is very, very important because we as Catholics still, by the way, have this duty to evangelize and go out into the world. And when they see all the chaos, the insanity, the stupidity coming from the Vatican, from Bergoglio, from his henchmen in the Vatican, all of these things, you have to be able to explain, unfortunately, explain this to people so they don't get confused and not want to join the true church for the salvation of their souls. Now, this is a very, very novel situation in the church we are facing right now. This is why it's a crisis. It's one of the worst crises we've ever had. And we are the ones born into this time, at this time and this place. We still have to become saints. And so we better figure out how we're going to manage and handle this current situation. Well, this concept of the anti church is an important one to understand because it does help explain what is happening to the Catholic Church and what the crisis is. Now, the best definition I've seen is from Father Linus Clovis. And how he tried to explain it was this way. And I think this always stuck with me and this made the most sense. He basically said, look, it's the Catholic Church and the anti-church. They coexist in the same sacramental, liturgical, and juridical space. So sacraments, liturgy, and juridical. That's the governing authority. And basically what it is that there's this overlap between the true Catholic Church and this other entity that has grown up and grown out of the true Catholic Church that overlays it in the same sacramental, liturgical, and juridical space. Now we have to dive into that a little bit to help us understand it more, and then we can give concrete examples of what that looks like. And then these will be examples you're very aware of, and then hopefully that'll make sense a little bit. It'll also explain to you the role of the Second Vatican Council. Now, here's the situation. How do you know what is the true Catholic Church? How do you know what is the true church, just in general? Well, those of you who know the Catechism know that, well, we look to the four marks of the church. The church has to be one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. That's one of the big conceptual paradigms we look to to know and to differentiate between Catholics and between Protestants, especially, right? Because there's a lot of people running around out there that say, "Well, we're Christian. We're the Church of Christ. We're Christian." Okay, but are you one holy Catholic and apostolic? Now, if you don't meet that test, then we know you are not, whatever you believe or claim your religion is not the true faith, is not the true religion, is not from God. That's one of the reasons we know is we apply these four marks of the church to that claim. Well, if you are a smart, possibly demonically influenced person who understands these things, you're going to say, look, uh, where Luther went wrong is he tried to separate himself. He denied the church. He denied the role of the papacy. He denied many of the key tenets of the faith. And he separated himself from the church to start his own religion. Okay. Well, it had a lot of success, of course, but it didn't put any type of, you know, death punch to the real church. The Catholic Church still survived. There was a counter-reformation movement. Of course, we have Our Lady of Guadalupe behind us, who converted millions and millions of natives in the New World, and it was still a force to be reckoned with. And so, as time developed, what did they say? They said, you know what? We need to infiltrate the true church. And from this true church, we can create a new religion, but that appears on the surface to actually be the real church. In order to do that, we have to at least be able to show four marks of the church, right? Because that's the test to decipher between false church and true church. So we need to appear like we meet this test of the four marks. So what happened is the infiltrators, especially back in the 1960s when they got into the Second Vatican Council, they started working away at this, and they came up and they were able to manipulate enough of the bishops, valid Catholic bishops, to go along with certain things, and from that allowed this anti-church to arise from the true church and still maintain on the surface the appearance of the four marks. So let's look at the four marks specifically. One, is there one Catholic Church? Okay, well, one involves what? The same faith. You have to have the same faith. So the anti-church has their own catechism, right? They claim to be perfectly in line with what came before them, but there are small and very important differences in what they teach as the faith. And so that's the deception there now, because it's not one, because there's differences in the faith, even though they claim to have the same faith as what happened in the past. That's the deception. So with each mark, there's going to be a slight deception and a slight falsehood while still maintaining the appearance. So with the first mark being one, it's difference in faith, what you believe. Pretty important, right? And yet they claim that today is the same faith as Aquinas, or even just 100 years ago, St. Pius X. They claim it is. The faith is not the same. The second, holy. Okay. Well, holiness means setting apart, being dedicated to God. Now, the true church is set apart and dedicated to God. And the anti-church is set apart, but instead of being dedicated to God, they're dedicated to what? To man, right? They're dedicated to mankind. Now, some would say, well, they're ultimately dedicated to the Antichrist, which I cannot disagree with, but you can't come out and say you're dedicated to Antichrist. Obviously, you'd be exposed really quickly. You'd blow the deception. So in order to maintain the deception, to maintain the appearance, you you refocus the church away from God, but focus back on man. That's a big one. The third mark is Catholic. You have to be universal. Well, here they just the infiltrators just hijacked the name Catholic and took it over. So legally, they use the name Catholic Church. We have Catholic universities. We have Roman Catholic. Their names are on the legal titles. Um, they maintain this sort of universal visibility uh, with actual buildings, with actual structure, and it appears like it's worldwide. And certainly, many people believe the anti-church to be the true church, and so they, although deceptively, they do claim and take that name, even though it's not the same. Uh, The fourth is apostolic. This is a big one because they do have apostolic line back to Jesus Christ. Most of those bishops back in Vatican II were validly ordained and validly consecrated. So they can claim some level of apostolic connection back to the original church. All right. The deception in that mark is that they deny the tradition, because an important part of apostolic means you maintain the tradition and hand down the tradition that's been handed to you. That's what they don't do. That's the deception. That's the part they reject. And so they cannot, in truth, claim apostolic uh, uh, succession in that sense, because they deny the tradition, even though they can probably show on paper a direct line back to the original apostles. Now, how does this look concretely? Well, I'm going to turn to a great book, The Catechism of the Crisis in the Church. Great book. If you don't have it, you should get it. Available at Angelus Press. And it provides a list of the changes since the Second Vatican Council. So you can see concretely that the anti-church is in effect like a new religion, even though it claims not to be and claims to maintain the four marks of the church. So here's some examples. And notice this is all since the Second Vatican Council, which is why I talk about the Second Vatican Council so much. This Since the Second Vatican Council, we have a new rite of ordination, 1968, a new Mass, 1969, new rite of baptism, 1969, new rite of marriage, 1969, new rite of confirmation, 1971, new rite of extreme unction, 1972, a new rite of penance, 1973, a new breviary, 1970, new calendar, 1969, new holy oils, 1970, new code of canon law, 1983, new way of the cross, 1991, a new catechism, 1992, new rite of exorcism, 1998, new martyrology, 2001, new rosary, 2002, and even a new evangelization. We also have in certain areas a new Our Father prayer that some bishops have been promoting. And so you see all of these things, you have all of these new things. It's a new religion. And this is where you get the notion of an anti-church. Okay, my friends? You have the appearance of the four marks. In each one, there's a slight deception involved there it's hard to discern at times unless you're really looking for it. But then concretely and effectively, you have a new religion and a new faith and a new practice and a new ritual. This is what we mean by the anti-church. My friends, I hope this has been useful to you. I know this is a lot to take in. Please share this video with your friends, subscribe to this channel. We need to have these discussions. This is very important to help explain to people what's going on and what we're talking about, why the situation we're dealing with here is different than what's happened before. And then we need to pray greatly for the restoration of the true Catholic Church throughout the world, the restoration of the Mass, and pray for the conversion of souls, especially those right now in the hierarchy of the anti-church who seek to destroy the real church. Let's pray for their conversions. Thank you for listening. God bless, and have a wonderful day.